should be live now. So, this is not financial advice. Anything that you hear here is for entertainment purposes only. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and start this off by just saying, welcome everyone. Hey guys. Yes, Phil. All right, everyone's showing up now. We're getting things going. All right, so let me go ahead and link this in the Discord. Then we can kind of go over what happened today, because obviously that was a bloodbath. And we will start off by getting people in here. Just checking something out. Yep, hello. Hell of a day. Alright, so let's kind of dive into some stuff. So obviously, I don't know, it's acting weird. Hold on. We can go back a little bit and let's just go to like the 5-minute. So I gotta put the Discord down because obviously it's really distracting. Let's go through, just make sure. Got everything up. We should go for it. Alright, let's start with... We'll focus on things we can control, which is what's in here. So, obviously, can I ask for a refund? Yeah, so let's kind of just dive in. Yeah, mods can knock off. Just screenshot the bots and then just instantly ban them. It's fine. We're sturdy. Yeah. Does this mean... wait, does the price mean anything as soon as they have the failure to deliver? Is the price is going to go up? Or do they never have to deliver? So, all right, you guys kind of need to chill out as far as, like, the price is doing what the price is doing. This is a highly, highly manipulated stock. And it's evident because you can look in the options chains, and all you have to do is go back to the 4-hour and look at this thing right here. You're seeing right here a stock that it got pressed down, hit a spring, and then ran up, bounced off the 200, ran through it, went up very high, got instant, and this is basically what happened today. We had this like huge sell-off. And this is them basically manipulating the stock down. It ran back up on FTDs. This is an FTDs that were building up in this area. They came up on the second run, and the same thing. It's a small cap stock, so they're able to really control it for the most part, because they're not going to get margin call because the position's not that huge. So this is a stock that's highly manipulated, but it's one that is gotten worse in this little run right here, because if you look at like this one, it happened hard and fast, but obviously this is when they had dilution through the warrants. They don't have the same dilution right now, and so they don't have the same escape that they did back in this area. They had the dilution, they got this stuff down, like I showed you here. Like, this is when retail really FOMO'd in, and then if you notice, the money's really the money stayed in. Like, this whole down portion right here, you're looking at like manipulation as far as like they were just kind of like low volume, they can just lower the price. Well, we had all this going really well, and then look right here, you had higher volume on this day. On this candle, the volumes died off. So retail has, like, you know, either spent their money getting into the play and the volume died, and as soon as the volume died down, that's when they just took advantage of the fact that they were able to run the price down. Now, here's the thing. If retail was to come back in, or not even retail, but like an institution, some sort of buying pressure was to come back in and raise the volume again, this would pop back up and run the other way. It's one of those things where when retail slowed down, that's when they took advantage of this, and they really went for it right here into this like day. So like this is today, and they really just hammered it all day long. Like, if you look back over at, let's do like a 5 minute. So this is the last 2 days. We hit that high, right? We started coming here, and we were supposed to pop up into here, but what they ended up doing was just nailing it down like hard. And they got us into a downtrend. And at this point right here, we broke through the 200, and we've been there, right? Well, today we ran up. We actually, I think, did at one point get close to the 200, and then they like hit it down. But I guess it didn't get that close. It was this area right here where we thought we might pop back over, and then it just kind of bled. And this is where they scared the crap out of retail. This particular like run right here. And at that point, the rest of the stuff was not that much. Like they sold off in like chunks here, but like this here midday is when they really scared the crap out of retail, because you can see like there was actually like selling volume and all that stuff. Over tomorrow, let's see. Yeah, this is fine, right? Yeah, I mean, obviously, no one's happy about this. Like, this is basically what they did with on low volume. They were able to push down the stock hard, and once they started pushing the stock down, which honestly, they probably, you know, these right here, these instant waterfalls in the beginning, they were eaten up by like buying pressure, but then these ones here had little volume, and so they were able to like hammer them down. And it looks like I've got the tape up. I have to go and import it into a like PDF, but like, for example, let's see, I can just show you guys what the tape looks like. That's the 19th. I need to get the 20th. So I've got to put this into like an Excel file and then start going through it. And I'm going to watch basically and see where the sell orders came in, where the buy orders come in, and then at that point you're able to kind of like differentiate all the stuff out and figure out how they manipulated the price down. And was there spoofing? Was there like they've got a whole bunch of things that they've got going on, but we need to figure out a couple things right now, which, obviously, let me pull up Fintel real quick, because I thought I saw something interesting on the day. Let me make sure this is the correct information real quick. So we're still number one on the squeeze score thing. They don't have the beta up for the gamma at this point right now. The interesting thing is, though, they actually got some shares back today, and so because they got some paper hands, like they got out, their cost to borrow has reduced down from 107 to basically like 78. It's still high, but it's not as high because they got some shares back, and so there's not as much demand. But the thing I thought was interesting was the aggregate short volume was pretty low today. And so this is something that over the last, like, I don't know, like 6 months, it seems like, they have actually been shorting between, it's on average, I think 59% daily. But today, out of all days, the days that this went down the most, the aggregate short volume was the lowest that it's been in months, which I find interesting. So that leads me to believe one of two things happened today. It's possible that they got to somebody, like, you know, that had a long position, and they maybe made a deal with them, and they said, listen, you know, we need you to sell today, and maybe some, you know, wink, wink, nod, nod, you know, Wall Street kind of stuff. And they got a long to sell off today, which is possible. There is the other possibility that the people that had the, I think it is Armis Capital, they had a decent chunk of the float up already. And I wanted to see, let me see if I can get this back up. Because you notice, like, there was actually more inflow than outflow today. Like, but yet the stock obviously tanked today. You know, if you look on the chart, the stock, you know, did not do well today. But at the same time, there was more inflow than outflow. But obviously, all of retail's orders are getting routed off exchange. So, I mean, you have to deal with that because, you know, why would anything be different, right? This is why it's not fair sometimes because, you know, yeah, like 64% of the volume from retail went off exchange. I mean, you know, if you want to just take a look right here, 64% of the volume, it wasn't as bad as yet the day before, which was like 70%, but a lot of the volume is still going off exchange. If you look at this right here, this white line, which is off exchange, over the last, basically since the 4th, it's skyrocketed and has been going off exchange more and more. I mean, you know, you're looking at high levels of off exchange, which means that they're basically making sure retail's orders don't ever hit the lit exchange to add buying pressure. You know, so the other portion that I wanted to talk about then is if they had low aggregate short volume today, either that or they somehow have mucked it up with, you know, I have to go through the tape, but, you know, did they spoof? Because if they spoof, that would have been on low volume. That can really send the stock flying downwards. And that's something that we can kind of just take a look. Like when you're watching a ticker, if a huge amount of selling pressure comes, even if it's real or not real, your market will react to that. So like here, you know, they did use some short exempts today. It wasn't super high compared to the other days, but did they do it at certain key down moments? Like when they were doing this waterfall down, did the market makers, you know, add some couple thousand shares to this while it's going down just to make sure it just bled? That would be my guess, because the market makers need this stock to be right where it is, which is max pain is 450. And where are we right now? 460 going into tomorrow, which means they got to de-hedge all their 5s. They got to de-hedge all the 7s, the 650s, the 6s, the 550s, and now they probably just de-hedged all the 5s, which is this downwards pressure. So, you know, a lot of this is going on through the options chain. And the problem I think I saw, you know, when retail started getting excited about this, they stopped focusing on the in-the-money stuff, and they actually started buying out of the money options, and that's exactly how these guys were able to basically de-hedge, and because, you know, the pressure came off when all the stuff was not in the money anymore. And as the stock moved down, all the stuff that was in the money before, because it wasn't deep enough in the money. And that's when I kind of was, you know, I had expressed that, you know, if you're going to, you know, make a market maker hedge for you, you better make sure that they're not going to be able to get to your options. That's why I was saying like $3, you know, I don't think they can push it to 3. I mean, they might be able to, but like that would be something if they could actually push it down to 3, because I think other people would step in and buy at that point. So let's just pull up real quick. gonna take Max Payne. And we'll get the ticker up. We'll just do it on this one. All right. Yeah, so Max Payne right now is still sitting at 450. So what's going to end up happening with these options is there are now a ton that have been de-hedged on the call side, and the puts have been basically hedged, and they're going to try to just basically keep it around this level if they can, or even if they can get it lower, they'd love to. But if, you know, at this point right now, they're going to try to keep it right here for the next 2 days. That's their goal. So they got it down here on low volume, and they were able to de-hedge the entire options chains. So let me pull up some options chains real quick for you guys. I'll screenshot it and bring it over. But here we go. TD. All right, so let's see some options change real quick. I mean, there was a lot. So here's the thing. So there is a ton of like call volume for this week. So if a whale or some amount of like a large amount of, you know, retail investors were to, you know, buy deep in the money stuff that they had the intention of making this market maker, you know, hedge, you know, that is something that could send the stock up. And then once that goes up, then they would have to either buy more puts to keep it down, or they'd have to, you know, hedge those, you know, 5s and then 550s. And because right now there's going to be, just eyeing it, like 2.7 million just at 5 if they were to get that over. And I mean, not all of them are going to be, you know, like I said, with them you'd have to look through an option scanner and see which ones are marked, you know, bullish and which ones are marked bearish. But if you took even like a 2 million, you know, for the 5s, that's a lot of buying pressure for a stock that doesn't have much float. So that's why when we saw this downward pressure, this is them de-hedging, I think. Either that or it was a long selling at the same time. But basically, once they started going and got the stock down into this level right here, they were able to start de-hedging the 550s, and then they were able to push it down, and that caused momentum because there's a ton of they bought a ton of $5 puts. So that's how they were able to get, once they got to like here-ish, around this like thing, they added a whole bunch of $5 puts, and that pushed that down even more. So until there starts being a ton more of in the money calls down here at the 4, 350, 3, that would then start pushing this back up because they would start having to hedge those ones. But I mean, like I said, nothing's financial advice. I'm just explaining how this works. They were able to added 9,727. Let me just take a picture of this so I can show you guys. They added a ton of puts. Let me see. Where is it? Okay. Let's get this up. And I'll be able to answer your questions in a second. I just want to kind of walk you through how this option change works, because this is how this whole entire stock's trading. The stock's not trading through buying and selling, and like they're obviously kicking the can on a lot of these like T's now. They just don't, they're just not going to deliver on them because at this point they need to get the stock price down. So they'll eat the FTD and let the probably build up is my guess. Because clearly they're just like, they recognize that we figured out a pattern, and they probably were like, nope, we're not going to do this. We'll eat the FTD for right now, and then we'll go ahead and just, push the stock down. Once the stock's down, then we can start trying to locate these shares. Because if they can scare retail out, then that's the goal. I mean, if retail gets out, then all these FTDs don't matter, because, what do you have to worry about then? But the interesting thing is there seems to be there was a growing interest in this stock. And so I think if people realized kind of its potential, there's still a chance for, because here's the thing. The float is very small. So as long as there's still interest on the retail side, because I still think, based off the volume that we've had over the last, we've had like 1 billion volume since March 8th, which is the utilization when we got the 100% utilization numbers. I did call the SEC multiple times today, just so you guys know. I can't even get a live person, so I keep leaving messages, and so far they've not called me back. But I'm just going to continue calling them until they call me back, and then I'm going to be super unhappy with them. I'm going to give them all the evidence I have, but at this point right now, we just got to go with what we got, which is, all right, so here's the options chain. Let's take a look at it real quick. Oops. So here's where we are right now. We're sitting here at like 460, right? So they got to de-hedge all of this. So they got to basically sell all these shares and hedge all of this stuff. And they built this up, so they wanted to run this down as far as possible. They want to make sure that none of these things are in the money, that retail can get the shares, because they don't have the shares probably, because the sheer amount of volume that we've had would indicate that the float got locked up a while back, and now they're starting to freak out because now they're starting to have to deliver these things and they can't deliver them. So they need this stock price to be down as far as possible, or else we get dangerous up in this level. Like if we had stuck in this level, they would have been having to hedge even higher, which means that they would honestly, probably it would have popped. So they need it, because Wednesday is a very important day, because if you think about it, Wednesday's halfway through the week. That means you have 2 days till OPEX. That means your options are the gamma is starting to actually really matter. So what they did was they ran this down, and they ran it down aggressively. Like yesterday, they did this one right here, the 550s and the 6s, to try to push it down. They loaded up this today. Like they loaded up the 5s and ran it into there. So that's what ended up happening with that. So they, on this side though, if there was all of a sudden 3,000, orders here for volume tomorrow, that would push this stock up, as long as they didn't spend even more money on this side trying to push it down. So, as the OPEX gets closer, it's going to be interesting to see what happens, because obviously, is there still, are there still longs? Because, this is how here's the thing, like retail is buying usually common shares, and so those are not hitting the exchange. So we don't know what kind of pressure it would have put if we actually saw retail buying in. The entire stock right now is being controlled through the options chain. And at this point, retail is not buying options that are causing it to move up, like these guys are making this stuff de-hedged, because they know how it works. They know that if they buy a ton of these $5 puts and they start stacking in more 550s and 6s, it's going to push the price down, and that means they get to de-hedge this stuff, which is going to add selling pressure. So this is how the actual stock is moving. It's not moving through retail buying, 100 shares on, a non-lit exchange, because those ones are just ending up T+3. So, that's I just want to make sure everyone kind of understands that this stock is really just running through the options chains at this point. And that's where the price is being affected. So let me go to OBS real quick and start answering questions. All right. So we got people in here. too many traders flipped it. We know we need some of the same traders come in and buy. I mean, yeah. I mean, so like $4 right now. We're at 460. 420 is book value on this stock, and like, you know, if you wanted to go long on it, this is a pretty safe area because your downside risk is about $2, but your upside risk is a lot higher. So, I mean, do you think de-hedging happened today? Yeah, absolutely. It absolutely happened today. And once they started doing that, they didn't have to short as much because, you know, it was already going that way. So once they got, you know, the stock price down far enough, they could just rely on all this getting de-hedged. Like all this got de-hedged, which means there was a ton of selling pressure because all this stuff started getting hedged. If everyone holds low volume, it'll be right. Yeah, I mean, like, there's a certain point where other people will start stepping in to grab some of this long because this is going to be more. May 20th is an important one. Like, this is a weekly. The real battle is May 20th. All right, so let me just read what people are writing. The subreddit short squeeze got compromised before market open. The mods were kicked out, limited comments. The sub was talking about Aterian the whole 2 weeks nonstop before that, and then all of a sudden, yeah. So I was not able to post to the 100 and something people. You know, was it 120K that sub had? You know, I could only post to Aterian stock, and I don't think some people were part of that. And you know, I don't have that many followers, so it's not like I'm sitting there with a ton of people anyway. So, you know, I don't think people got to hear what was probably needed to be said, and I'm obviously not able to stream when I'm at work, so I can't tell people what was going on and explain to them this is just de-hedging, you don't need to freak out. So, but yeah, I mean, until I start doing this full time, I'm not able to kind of walk people through how some of this stuff works. And it's frustrating because it's like I would love to be able to explain things, you know, live and like real time, but at the same time, I understand, like, I gotta stay good with the job I have. If they can manipulate the naked shorts without the SEC or anyone giving a shit, what's the point of fighting a squeeze? I mean, you could ask the same thing for GameStop or AMC or, you know, Support.com or any of those things. And honestly, like, they all burst at some point. Just because it doesn't happen this week doesn't mean it doesn't happen. That's what I would tell you. Because honestly, like, all that happened was our volume died off and these guys took advantage of it. And they got, you know, basically the ability to de-hedge. And that caused a ton of selling pressure. Good night for the glass, the home scotch, or for... Yeah, I mean, I could probably have some tonight if I need to. Yeah, so let's see. I saw filings that Citadel was long and one of the largest shareholders. Yeah, so Citadel has long positions. They also have puts and they also have calls. So if you look through the 13F, this is how most smart money trades. They trade all the above. They make sure they have positions on them, and they may hedge them to one side or the other. And they may have been, you know, bearish for a while. They could switch if they want to, but that's how you protect your assets. You at least, you know, hedge both ways. So if something goes wrong, like today, you don't lose everything. Need to get this to trend more. Yeah. So let's see. I just want to see if there were more buyers, especially ones that in the money that counted. Because this is the only way right now that the stock moves, because most retail's buys are not affecting the price of the stock. So the only way that's happening right now is through the options chains, at least from what I'm seeing. Unless we have a bunch of whales who are routing through IEX or, you know, IEX or some sort of, you know, lit exchange that they're able to use and buy large quantities of shares. The only other way that's going to happen is through the options chain. So... But once again, that's not financial advice. It's just, you know, that's how this works. Is unless some of this stuff starts getting filled up down here, that is pretty safe. That's probably not going to be touchable by them, because I don't think they want to get back to the 250 level again when there's not all of a sudden interest in this stock, because those shares, if you know, the float's already probably been eaten up already. They don't want to all of a sudden double the size of the float, and then have to deal with that, because I think that might be what's going on right now, is they need retail out so badly that they're willing to do all this stuff to really, really control it. And let's see. Which mainly is to get those options for market makers and hedge properly to max profit. I guess that was a statement. Yeah, so here's the thing. Like, Aterian at this point right now, let's zoom out. That was the daily, right? So I think I need to go over here. So right here, you have a up channel, and then this is us breaking out of it right here. And then it was at least bought up. The wick has been pushed up. So there was some buying pressure at the end. So it wasn't, this is the low, I guess, down here. And then people bought it up to at least like here. And then that's how we finished. It was the 460, the 465 area. So what's going to be interesting right now is what is going to happen next is, if the RSI has cooled off. So you see right here, we are back now within normal limits to, if we wanted to make another run, we could. The MACD, though, is starting to curl, down on the daily. So that what they're trying to do right now is they're trying really hard to get this thing lower so they can really have that crossover and make it look really, really bearish. That's their goal. Right here, you see on the stochastic, this flattens out and crosses back over. That's something that we could potentially see this leveling out a little bit more, especially in this area, is my guess. Because this is max pain right here. Like, max pain is basically right here. So going 2 days would be here, the 22nd. So could we be, hanging out in this area? Yeah, very likely. It really depends on volume. If it's, sagging volume, then we're going to probably head down into this area right here. That'd be my guess. Like, that's max pain. So it's really just going to depend on, how much do people understand what's going on? Like, obviously we know the numbers. If people have been like following the DD, we understand that they don't, there's a lot of shares that are trading back and forth right now on this stock. There is a ton of short volume. There's a ton of just volume in general. And there are not a lot of shares. And if you think about how much volume we've had, how much interest retail had, if they didn't all bail out, then these guys are still going to have a massive amount of FTDs next week. So is the squeeze hope alive still? Yeah, absolutely. Because May 20th is going to be the one that starts stacking up. Those options are going to be the ones by the time that we get there. Those could be, the entire float could be on both sides. Because that's just how the stock's going to trade. So spoofing it was evident. Yeah, so I have to go back and look at my stuff, compare it to the notes that I pulled off the tape, and I'm going to go through and watch some of it tonight and just see if I can find, like, especially where I see like waterfalls and I see some, like, really, really obvious. I'm sorry, I'm on the daily, so I need to go to but I want to see the real obvious parts where I'm like, okay, so what happened, like, here, obviously? Was that all spoofing? Was there just, because, this is a very aggressive move on a pretty high volume candle. And so how much of that was spoofing? How much was regular? Like, especially like this area right here, I want to really take a look and see what was going on there. Were they just putting really massive sell orders in and then kind of pulling them back? So I will do that. Do you think some of the whales' attention was focused on tickers like Netflix or Tesla? Yeah, both of them were running, so they could have, gotten bored with us for a second and went off to play with them and, taking their profits and from here and then going over there to play, and then they might come back here once they see that things are oversold, in the short term, and come back. There's a whole bunch of things that could happen. I'm holding long. Yeah. Let's see. We essentially have to hold down the fort until the FTDs pile in. No. The FTDs are not. Sorry, it's not approximately 1 month. It's actually like 1 week. So at the end of the month, which next week should be the end of the month, you will get the beginning of April's FTDs. And if you remember, the volume came in. I'll go to the daily. The volume came in starting here on the 4th. So basically what we'll get to see is April 1st until basically April 15th, I think, which is here. So we'll get to see all this data right there. From there to there, and this is where the FTDs will start spiking, is probably like here and then into the next one, which we'll get on the 15th of May, which is right after earnings also. So that's why I said May 20th, those options are going to be like the battleground, really. So yeah, the FTDs next week, we should see the first parts of it. If we see a growing trend of like in the first part, you might see some FTD spike maybe by the 6th, 7th. By the 12th, we should get in a little juicier, and like by the 14th, we should start seeing like a accumulation, and then we're gonna have to wait another 15 days to find out the rest of it. Is the gamma squeeze ruled out? No, it's not, because if you look at the options here, the only thing that would happen is if we all of a sudden had a massive amount of buying pressure down here, that would force them to start hedging these things again. And that would actually cause really, really aggressive buying, because now all of a sudden you're looking at like 2 million shares, 1 million shares, 2 million, like 6, like you would have a ton of like stuff. We would fly up if we actually got a ton of like volume and like, buying pressure down here. The problem is people started stacking up these and lost sight of like, keeping things in the money. And they were able to basically de-hedge all this because they were able to basically run it down on low volume. So, retail was so, trying to buy up the 750s and the, like they weren't stacking the bottom part. And that's, what happened essentially was this got ignored down in the safer area, and they were able to just push it down today, and yet part of yesterday. Because I remember I was telling you guys, they started, I think we were up here, and they added like, like 1,000, like 1,100 there, 1,200 here, and they started like, and there was more here in the 6s, which pushed us under, and then they just continued the same, thing today, and they got, this was their part that they were going to run down towards, and they basically created a reverse gamma ramp down. Yeah, so yeah, and if it gets down to 3, honestly, like that's below book value. And I mean, at this point right now, there's a lot of people that we were down there before. We can, and we came pop right back up. But now there's more people that actually are interested in the stock. When we were doing it, there was only like the handful of people that were, part of the Discord, and we were trying to like, just we were holding on, waiting for the reversal, and we got the reversal, and then we got this nice run up because this, we hit a low right here. The 52-week low was 210 right here, and then literally like 2 weeks later, we were running up hard for these last 2 weeks. This was the first day that we really, or the second day, between these two right here, we got pushed down. So, do they have all the tools they want? Yeah, I mean, so here's the thing. Like, the market's always going to be stacked against retail, because if retail was actually allowed to buy, this stock would have flown off the charts already. But they routed all of retail's buys off exchange. So, like, they get to basically have all the tools, and retail gets tied their arms and legs behind their back. And then the only thing that we're able to even control is somewhat our buying of options that the market makers then have to hedge. So, what happens if the failure delivers to continue to stack up? Well, they're already on the reg show threshold. So what that is essentially is when you have failed to deliver. Failure to deliver is basically when one side of I guess a deal does not come up with their obligation. So like if I am a broker and I say, okay, I'm a brokerage and you buy shares from me of Aterian, and then I go, I don't see a ton of these right now in the market. I'll go ahead and I'll wait. So I go T+1, T+2, stock still keep going up in price. I'm like, I don't want to actually have to spend more money than I want to go find this on the open market. Sometimes they'll just eat it. So they'll place like a fake share in there, your IOU essentially, that you see, and they didn't actually locate your shares. So that would be a failure to deliver. And they're just waiting for the stock price to come down so they can buy the shares at market value and not lose out on, your brokers are basically against you. And that's the honest truth. And I think I wrote that in the DD today. Your brokers do not, they're not on your side. They make money on the bid ask. They also make money when you lose money. If they decide that they were not going to instantly buy those shares and they were going to wait till the stock came down, yeah, that's what's going to end up happening. Like they may have chose not to do a T+3 today, and they just said, all right, we'll just eat the FTDs. We know that won't come out until the next FTD report. So, and I just want to hear you say they're in trouble. They're in trouble. Well, they got themselves out of some trouble today, but they could be in trouble. So what happened? Well, if you haven't heard what I just talked about, I basically explained about them de-hedging and all this stuff. What does max pain mean? Max pain is just where basically it's where it would cause the most damage on both sides for the options chain. So whatever's going to make basically the market makers the most money, that's max pain. It's where it's a perfect equation of basically calls and puts, and wherever it would make everybody lose the most, except for the market makers, that's where max pain is. So it's just something in the options chains. Like for example, max pain right now is set for 450. So this is 450. That's where if you look at the amount of puts that are in the money, but also down here, this is the perfect level for at least the put side right now would be here. Now on the call side, you see how much they're going to burn right now. I put always red for stuff that's burned. Technically the week's not over, so this stuff could get pushed back up. But at this point right now, if we finish at max pain, which is right here, usually they finish slightly below. This would be where they make the most amount of money on the call side. So it's a balance between what's on the put side and what's on the call side, and wherever that would burn the most amount of contracts for the most amount of premium. Because you have to remember, each one of these contracts that was bought, they paid a certain amount of money for it, and whatever that equals up to, that's what they'll collect if they don't end up in the money and collecting their shares. So imagine watching DFV before it went parabolic. I think I'm making. I must have gotten really far behind in the chat because now I'm stuff's disappearing. So if I missed your stuff, I'm sorry. I'm just behind. Okay, the bots earned their day off. Well, yeah, retail's not out. They're just holding above. This is horseshit criminal. Yeah, I mean it kind of is. So I'm scared. Hype me up. Well, I mean, here's the thing. It's not over. There are plenty of options on the May 20th. There are, if you're holding common shares, you're not going anywhere. So, I mean, let's see. Where the hell are these shares coming from? That's a good question. I don't have an answer for that because they pull out millions of shares every single day, and I have no idea where they're getting them because at this point right now, they're not coming from they're at 100% utilization since March 8th. That means shares should be very hard to find, yet they're finding even more recently. In the last 3-4 days, they've actually found something like 10 million shares on a float that's 26 million. That doesn't make sense. That's why I'm trying to get in touch with the SEC, because there's obviously stuff going on here that's not supposed to be going on. And at this point, I can't accuse them of that until I have more evidence of it, but at this point I'm trying to keep track of everything and send it all off to them because this stuff doesn't make sense. And I did reach out to a couple of people that are well respected, like Dave Lauer and a couple other people, hoping to hear back from them soon, because I want to find out their thoughts of this, because I talked about this to Dave Lauer earlier, like in the year. I think it was sometime in like September last year. Or it was September of November last year, and he was talking to me about death spiral financing. So we got into that together. When do they cover? Yeah, I mean their goal is to never cover. Their goal is to send Aterian to zero. That's what their goal is. I mean they doubled down. That's what they've done. Let's see. The float is puny. Yeah, I mean honestly, like if you're buying commons, like there's definitely at least 30,000 people across the entire world that have heard of Aterian and invested in it. Like my mom's invested in Aterian. I have friends and neighbors who are invested in Aterian. There's a lot of people that are buying and holding like thousands of shares that I know. And I talk to people in our Discord that have like literally like 200, 300,000 shares. And those add up. And when you have a stock that is the size or the float of the size of ours, that means that there's no possible way that they have these billions of shares that they're trading. We traded 1 billion shares over the last 40 days on a stock that has been 100% utilization. Like, that doesn't make any sense at all. So just, you have to realize these guys are hiding all this stuff because they don't have these shares, and they're just kicking the can down the road and trying to scare retail out right now, because that's essentially what they did with GameStop. Like if we go back and take a look at GameStop back in the day, GameStop. Let's do GME. All right. So let's take a GameStop before it went up massively. Here you go on the daily, right? So let's look at our time frame, because I remember I entered GameStop around here-ish. I think the stock price was around, I think it was this bar right here when it went up really high. And I was like, I don't understand. So I read the DD, I think the day before. This day I bought in at like 15 or 16 or 17, and it ran up and then got pushed down. And then, we had a couple good days, and then this happened. And this was a huge down day, just kind of like the one we just had. And, and then we was getting crushed. And my friends were calling me and going, how could this happen? Like, you told me this was some sort of squeeze, and we're just losing money because we bought in at 17, and all of a sudden it got down to like 12. And they're like, is this over? And I was like, I don't think so. The math on it checks out. And then a week later, they start going up again a little bit, and then it starts really flying, and they're pushing down the wicks. And then they got pushed like down a little bit. People are like, oh, is it done? And I think this is around when Andrew from Citron, if I remember correctly, was like, I'm going to tell you why GameStop's going back to... It was around this time frame, somewhere in this thing. I think it was when it ran up to like 40. He was like, I'm going to tell you why it's going back down to 20s. And then that's when things really took off, because that's when they were in trouble. All right, so let's see this. If it only takes 10,000 shareholders and an average 2,600 to like the float, it's tiny. The float is tiny, and... Oh, Tanner, thank you. Appreciate it. I'm probably missing a ton of super chats. I apologize if it's, I'm just trying to keep up right now, and there's a lot of people in here typing, so I don't know. Okay. LeBron is shilling our I can't see everyone's thing, so I'm not able to keep up with that. But let's talk about ATER. 3 straight quarters of beating earnings, 4-quarter report on the 5th, companies by products used by... Yeah, I mean, Aterian, right now, has their revenue's gone up year after year. Like, or quarter after quarter, I should say. And honestly, like when I looked into them, when I was comparing it against the others, squeeze stocks, it was the only one that made sense. It had a low float. It had like decent, like it was actually making things that I understood and knew. And then the shipping, was obviously part of the problem. And so at some point, that shipping is not going to be the problem forever. So we'll see. All right. I've never seen so much spam. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why there's still bots on this. Like, and I want you guys to realize this. There are still bots coming out and talking about how the squeeze is over, and they told us to sell at 7. Why? Because they knew it was going to go at 7 to get really shorted down. They needed to tell us that, oh, yeah, 7 right here. That's the highest it can go, and then they shorted it and pushed it down to discourage people. All right, let me get some water. Hold on. All right, so let's see. Shares available for the shorting. Yeah, so if you want to look at the Fintel, let's pull that up again. So right now there's 2,000, and I think their cost to borrow right now is like 78. So it's gone down slightly, but it's still high. Like it's not like 8% like it was before. They've gotten some shares back, so it's not as pressure on them, but that can quickly change real quick again. We're still at 100% utilization. So just because they got some shares back doesn't mean they actually freed up that 100% utilization. Wait till Friday. Yeah, I mean, like I said, if you guys, if all of a sudden this starts filling up again and that puts pressure on them to hedge again, this is a lot of buying that they have to do. Like if these numbers were all of a sudden these down here, that would send the price of the stock up. They would have to start hedging these. These would get de-hedged, and then the stock price would go back up pretty aggressively, actually. Tomorrow's going to be an important day for that. I mean, it's one of those things that if all of a sudden all these like 250s all of a sudden had 14,000 volume on, or 14,000 volume on like the $3, all of a sudden that would be really, really bullish, and then that would force these guys to actually start hedging these and start de-hedging, and the stock price would start going up, and then you have to then account for the 6s and the like. That's how all this works. So I do not think it will go above 10 by May 20th. So they're telling us the financial report before the 20th. Yeah, it does. So ATER's earnings will come out before the 20th. So spoofing was really bad. I should have screen recorded it. Yeah, I actually did record it. I think I streamed it today, Brandon Jones. So if anyone wants to go screenshot my stream from today, you're more than welcome to. If you remember what time it was, roughly, you could do it. Yes, spoofing can actually move the stock that much, especially on low volume. Yesterday and today was a massive effort to shake the retail tree. Yeah, I mean, at this point right now, they just made it cheaper for some people to buy in. If if they were going long on this stock and they like the stock, then they're giving people a chance to buy more. Yeah, you're going to get rid of the fair weather ones, but if this core group of people understands what they're doing and what this, what's going on with this, then it starts getting really, really, really. I think they sold out the entire float. I mean, at this point with that much volume, I don't see how they didn't. And if retail is just sitting around getting their shares delayed, there's going to be a problem down the line, because that's essentially what ends up happening with a lot of these things. And the more and more bullish calls that are deep in the money, they're going to start having to slowly hedge those, and if they can't get the stock price down back into this level right here, if this is where all the calls are being hedged for the next couple of weeks, then you're going to see more upward buying pressure, because they're not going to be able to get the price down that far without people buying more of it, because it's going to get cheaper. So I mean, the fact that bots are still in here shows you that this is still a live play. Like when the bots leave, they don't pay people to do this just for fun. They're paying them to make sure that the stock is forgotten about. They need us to forget about this. Thank you, Shameful. A peach. I'll get a peach with that. Thank you. Yeah, they're scrambling because the FTD report comes out next week, and they'll get to see some of these numbers growing. The importance of the FTDs, basically, we're already on the reg show, so we know there's FTDs. If once it goes over a certain percentage, I think it's like 5% or something, that the entire float, then you get placed on the reg show. There's some like other like factors in that, but for the most part, that's what it is. Not financial advice. Are we going to see a dip tomorrow, 3-ish again? I mean, like, it's hard to tell. They have definitely built this ramp up, and it really is all going to depend on what institutions and what, like if they're long bulls, if they start filling up this area, then it will start moving back up. And if these guys start stacking these, and then keep trying to push it down, they're trying to get it down here. You can tell, right now. They've been buying these ones down here in order to try to push this down. They want to gamma ramp this down. It's like a reverse gamma ramp. They basically start buying these ones here, and as they do that, you start having to hedge these, all of these together. You have to hedge those, and then you have to start de-hedging these. That's their goal. They're going to try to get it down into the 3s if they can. So it's all going to depend on what people are buying and doing that. Let's see. Just got to get out now. Yeah. We told you guys to sell at 7. At this point, it's going to 1. Oh, good. I have to go. Salty LeBron lost his house. I'm just saying these now, so sorry if I... LeBron's trying to feed his family. Yeah, are there mods in the chat? I can't ban, though? What? Notice me, Anon. You skipped my questions on the stream. What was your question, Tyler? I'm like 20 minutes behind, probably. I was gonna say I'm sorry. So the bots think it will go to 10 by May 20th. Yeah, probably. I mean, it's definitely a possibility. Yeah, like I said, this is all going to depend on these option chains. If they continue stacking these and getting these, they're going to start hedging these and de-hedging these, then yeah, it's possible they can push us down there. It's all going to depend on what retails and what institutions and what other traders are going to do. If they start stacking down here and putting, these will start having to get hedged, especially if they're in the money and retail's looking to actually buy those shares on Friday, and then by next week they'll have to start delivering those. What is the expected FTD to validate this reasoning? I don't quite know what you mean. What is the expected FTDs, like the number? I mean, we're already reg show, so that means that over at least like 5% of the entire float has failed to deliver. So that's already significant when you have, that's not a normal thing on any stock to have, is multiple, percentages of the entire stock not, being delivered. That's when there's a problem. Like Dr. Michael Burry, the guy from The Big Short, he had bought GameStop. He requested his shares, and it took them like a month and a half to find them, and that's when he knew there was a problem. So, yeah. How does this guy keep coming back? I reported and blocked him. It might be multiple accounts with the same name. Yeah, multiple accounts. That's what somebody said. LeBron's the proof. Yeah, payment for refers to proof. Hakeem Olajuwon. They're using basketball players again. Mods, why did I get timed out after sending a sticker? I don't know. What about Mullen? So they're trying to pump Mullen now. Mullen is dead. SEC complaint form. I emailed the SEC. Everyone does their part. Yeah, I mean, like, honestly, I think all of you guys should be, if you care about Aterian and you care about your stock, you should not be sitting on your hands and waiting for other people to do it for you. Like, I already reported an SEC report. I can show you guys what it looks like. You know, we can kind of go through one together if you just want to see, but it's not difficult. Like, you literally just do that, and I've been calling and asking them to call me back. And I plan on saying, hey, listen, you know, when they finally call me back, I'm going to say, this is some BS, and here's some evidence for you guys. Let's do reporting. All right. So, if you go here to the SEC website, sec.gov/TCR, right here, suspected wrongdoings, fraud, you go to submit a tip. You can tell it what do you think it is. Is it unregistered? Let's see. So that one's not us. That's not us. Manipulation of a security. Then you can say abuse of naked shorting, orchestrating trades by multiple partners, which could also be another one. Suspicious end of the day trading, wash sales, other. If you put other, you can tell it what you want. But in this case, if we wanted to do, you know, you would say no, because if it's your first time. I'm constantly filling these out, so for me, I say yes, because I'm reporting it multiple times. But in your own words, you start talking about, you know, you could say, you know, how is it possible that this stock is trading, you know, 40x its float, or 40x its, you know, float, you know, while on 100% utilization, and, you know, shorts them seemingly coming up with shares every which way, and the float's locked up. Like, I mean, there's a million things you could write, but basically you just complain about whatever you want in there. The whole point is just telling them what security it is and having them start looking into it. Because if it starts getting a lot of attention, that's what we need. Are you having are you having or have difficulty getting access to your funds or security? No, not in this case. Did you suffer loss? For some people, you put yes. Some people, you put no. It depends on where you are, obviously, on the trade. You could tell them how much it is. Then you say, when did you become aware of the conduct? For some of us, I put down last year. For some of you guys, it may be this year. Within basically since the 4th of April, you could put that. You know, is the conduct ongoing? Yes. Is it, you know, is an individual or firm acknowledge the conduct? No. You know. But it's very simple. Like, this is not a complex thing. You basically just check some boxes. When did you learn about it? You could say, you know, publicly available information. Have you complained to anybody? Complained to the SEC? Hit next. No, I had to fill out. Blah. I'm just showing you guys how it works. But then you can actually, once you get down here, I think you can play about a firm. You can then go through here. You can say if it's the clearing agency, if it's, you know, a private fund like a hedge fund, that's here. I mean, you could complain about basically a publicly held company, but in this case, so I would do either the the hedge funds, or you could complain about the publicly held company that it's being under attack, or you can do the other one, which is like the clearing agency that's not taking care of, obviously making sure that these trades are all cleared and on the up and up. Not associated. You can just, and this is where you put the ticker symbol. So you go here, type in ATER, and then we start going through, and you can say, we're not an employee, we didn't work for them, and then, you can type in whatever you want here for that. This is not super important, but just make sure you, put in whatever, firm name. Like, I think for me, I just put in, like DTCC because I was complaining about the clearing agency last time I reported it. Other times I put in, I think, an address of like one of the hedge funds, and then just looked up their information and typed it in. And then, let's do that real quick. They may not let me go. And then at this point right here, let's see. It is so if you do options, you could report that. If it's an equity like commons, you can do that too. So, and then you just tell them, they are common stock, exchange traded, ATER. I just did the same thing there. And then you can say yes, you can say no. If you have evidence, you can upload it too. And then you can put in your name here so they can reach you. And then I don't want to do that right now, but let's see if it'll let me go anymore. Okay. So they want me to put in something. I'm not going to obviously put that in, but this is where you could upload like files, screenshots of spoofing, all sorts of stuff. Like you could put in evidence here. That's what I always do, is I include some evidence in there. Haven't heard anything back from them because, it's the SEC and they don't really do anything. But the more and more evidence we gather against, what's going on here, the better it is. So let's see. Let's go back to the chat. Some more shills and bots. Okay, so I don't give financial advice, obviously, but I think we're just going to have to see how tomorrow goes. I mean, at some point, you probably do want to at least save whatever premium you have left on them, because I don't know where this is going to go. It all depends on what happens on this options chain, because obviously, if all it would take is if a whale came in and just sat down on the 250 calls and just bought all, thousands of them, then this stock would fly. So it really just depends, but at the same time, like, yeah, I've got some 750s for this week also, and at this point they're down a lot. So, I mean, and Theta's obviously killing them. So you got to make the decision probably tomorrow if we don't get a nice like IV spike. So it's all going to depend on tomorrow and how it goes. They don't talk like that. They've never spammed like that. Yeah, I was going to say these are a little bit different bots. They're more spicy this time. So Keem thinks it's going to go to 10. Their script is trash. Are we expecting another red day tomorrow? I mean, once again, it's all depends. I mean, they're going to try to push us down as much as they can. Ideally for them, they would love to put it right here. That's where they'd love to put it, like 340 to end the week. Boom, they would get all of this premium, all of it. They would just eat up all that premium, and they would be happy because a lot of these shares don't have to get delivered to retail. That's why I was saying $3 puts, because nobody else is buying them, and that would be pretty hard to get it down there without some buying pressure. So, can we be $8 by Friday? Yeah, we could be. I mean, it all, like what I said, it all depends on what's going to happen tomorrow. Like if people are willing to buy down here, and this price starts spiking, and then these guys aren't buying those puts, and just all of it depends on the options changes at this point, because I don't think retail's buy pressure is doing anything because it's all getting routed off exchange. Do we know who's shorting Aterian? I know the ones that have the largest puts are like Jane Street, I think, and Citadel, and maybe Susquehanna. They're those ones I think have the largest puts on there, so they have the most to gain. They still have like obviously long positions on both commons and on calls, but they have the larger portion, I believe, on the put side. And then you obviously have some shorts that you don't get to see those. They're telling us to give up. Give up. Yep. I mean, the fact that we have bots and chills in here, after a horrible day, means that they're still worried about the stock. We wouldn't see them honestly, if the stock price was $2 a share and they would do that, it would just boom. And can you remove columns for volume analysis and order book so we see more? Oh, on this thing? Oh, because it's smaller for you guys, right? That's right. I'll move the order book over. The volume analysis. Is that any better? Can you see that better? I don't want to mess it too much because, hold on. I need to do this. There. Hopefully that's a little better. Which mod timed me out? Jeez. I don't know. Maybe they clicked on the wrong person. I don't know. The mods are here now. That's good. I was hoping for Elon, but LeBron's here. Kevin Garnett's here too, apparently. Yeah, they've used basketball names for the last couple of things. So, last couple of nights they've been coming in using basketball names. Let's see. What's the SEC filing that came across SST? So those are pipe warrants that came up for SST, just so you know. So the pipe warrants hit, and and that's the danger of that play. And I told people that in the beginning, that if those pipe warrants came early, everybody was banking on the pipe warrants being like a month or two out, and they would be able to squeeze SST because it had that tiny float. But I said, all it takes is them to just eat the fees, and they'll if they get that out faster than you guys are expecting it, then it's going to drop like a rock, and that's essentially what happened. It may look like a fine company down the road. It didn't look like it was horrible based off what I kind of glanced at it, but I don't think I want to hold that one long term. Like Aterian, I was fine buying down at like $2 and $3 because I thought that was just a asymmetric bet. Like you're buying at the bottom, and it's got more room on the upside. So. All right, let's see. You don't have to thank us for sending you Super Chat, man. Your DD's more than enough. Appreciate it, though. I mean, obviously, this is new to me. I'm not used to streaming or YouTube. I've only been doing it now for like 2 weeks, but... Oh, the floaters, they say, killing it. Anon, why is Reddit shut down? Sorry, I'm late. I don't know. Is Reddit shut down right now? I didn't see, but I know every time they seem to have some sort of like financial event, they somehow close down, or at least like the short squeeze one was weird. Like that was really weird timing. Like literally, we had like 2 weeks solid of like really bullish, and like people were like all amped up. 120K people in there, and then all of a sudden this morning when like we were gonna have like the roughest day, they went out, and it's just like that seems weird. It's a very weird coincidence. Is today's offense going to cost them down the road? I mean, Aterian was one of those things that like they thought that they were going to be able to get this down to zero, and clearly we are not down at zero. In fact, we're double what we were like from down here. So like over the last month, I think we're up right now still like 100% from last month. So I mean, it is what it is. I don't think they're gonna. There's more people looking at Aterian now long term, and part of this community that are saying, okay, I can stick around and see what's going on here. Does buying a call that ends in the money have the same impact as selling a put that? Yeah, it's the same thing. Basically, the only difference is you get paid a premium if you sell a put, which is bullish, and you don't, obviously, for the call. You just pay them, and But if you sell a put, then you do collect a premium based off of where you sold it at. Does averaging down make a difference to the price direction? No. Averaging down it affects your personal account. Whether you buy at $5 and then it's now $4.50 and you buy down there, it doesn't do anything to the stock. It has to do only with your own personal brokerage account. So Tom's saying he's got 8K shares here. If you are scared or have weak hands, it's better not to watch ticker until May. Yeah, that's probably good advice for some people. Like if you're looking at this long term, then you may not want to watch it day to day because this is going to chop around very, very violently. Like I showed you GameStop. GameStop, they had 7 days of just bleeding, and then all of a sudden it was $20 higher. And that's what happens with these plays. Like they're going to make sure that they try to get you out. That's what it boils down to. They're going to try to make you get out because they need your shares, and they don't want to sit there and eat all these FTDs. So he's so far back in the chat. Yeah, sorry. I'm about halfway through now, so I'm trying to get through them faster. Are they still having to do FTDs? Yeah, they still have FTDs. Like they may have gotten some shares back here, but at this point they're still on reg show. Until they're not on reg show, it'll be interesting to see what happens then. What's your price prediction if this runs successfully? I just up. I don't know. I mean, because I don't know honestly at this point right now the amount of shares that are floating out there that probably shouldn't be floating out there is very high. That means that's a lot of stuff that when that can gets kicked down the road, this becomes like, okay, we're just closing our positions. That could get really, really, really high. All right. How much money do you get for being a bot? I'll troll Eater Post. Hire me. FTD is not a flower company. No. I mean, it might be too, but short exempts. So short exempts are basically the ability for a market maker to short on downticks or anytime they feel like, and they don't have to locate shares, and they're given this ability because I don't know why they're given this ability. Usually it's for like mergers and stuff like that they're supposed to be using it, but they totally abuse it. And it's evident on like certain stocks like Mullen. We picked up that there was a high amount of like short exempts being used on that. They were doing some like delusion events, but like they were basically trying to keep like the price, the retail price down. And retail was buying in, and they were trying to keep the price down because they were going through an active like war process. But that clued in retail that something was going on there. So, do you think it will take till May 20th to get to 10? I mean, it's all dependent on how much interest this stock maintains. If this stock maintains and gets more interest each week, if all of a sudden, for example, I've seen some people coming over from the GameStop community, and I know very much so because I'm part of that community that they are not big fans of anything else. They don't like AMC. They don't like anything else. So I understand that. The one thing, though, I think those guys know is when corruption is happening on the market, they understand what that feels like because it happened to GameStop, and it feels really bad to have a stock get pushed down, get almost like put out of business. And I mean, this is basically the same story GameStop had in the beginning. They were getting pushed down, pushed down. Luckily for them, they had Ryan Cohen that came in and joined the board, and then at that point, there, people started getting more. Fundamentally, people were like, "This might be undervalued." That was DFV's, thesis, that it was undervalued. Ryan Cohen was going to change the company around, and so the stock wasn't worth like $2-3 a share, like what it was at the lowest point. And so he bought in a bunch of stuff, and then he went long them, and that's essentially the same thing. We got pushed down into the twos. It was too low. It was underneath current asset values, which makes no sense if you know anything about fundamentals. That's your cash, your inventory, your accounts receivable. All those things are included in what's called current assets. And they pushed it below that, and that doesn't make sense fundamentally why you would do that. So that's what you do with a company that's going out of business, and Aterian was not going out of business, so that was way too low. And that's when I started really rating the DD, and this is not right. Something's going on with the stock. And obviously we were right about that, because look at what happened. We basically started running up very quickly after this DD hit. One of these days, people were like, oh, tiny float, this makes sense. And I think there was, between, where's the 8th? Oh, that's right, it was earnings. So this is when they ran out of shares, just so you guys visually can see. This is when they ran out of shares. It was 100% utilization. And we have now gone 43 days since then. Not all of them were trading days, but still, that's when we ran out of shares. That's nuts. You guys are talking about LeBron. SEC is paid for, probably. I mean, do you think the shorts paid the short squeeze mod? I think no, because I think those guys actually got removed. From what I understand, Frank and his guys all got removed from the entire Discord. Not Discord, but they don't have access to the Reddit anymore. And he said that he, contacted Reddit, and Reddit, apparently was trying to give out the community or something like that. So, and then they locked the comment. So, if you got money, let's see, the SEC doesn't care. Show some love. Hit the like button. They haven't covered it. Yeah, they haven't closed their shares. I mean, these shorts still have a huge amount of shares that they have not closed out, and they're not planning on closing them because they think they can win this. And at this point right now, they were able to push down the stock price, and but it is what it is. Because I'm not selling my shares until I feel like I'm getting the right amount for them, and I know the math on this, and things don't look right. So if you guys ran out of shares back here, how the hell did we trade $1 billion in volume in that time frame? That makes no sense. The CEO did acknowledge naked shorting. Yeah, he literally hired a third party last year, and then I think the SEC told him to shut up, and then he hasn't said anything since then about it. He did actually, I take that back. Somebody asked him on the last earnings call, and he did say that the process takes a long time, and that they are still actively in an investigation about that. So, yeah. Let's see. Yeah, there's a lot of open interest on May 20th. And that, my guess, is that May 20th there is probably the hedge for the shorts. The shorts probably hedged those $10 calls to make sure they didn't lose control. They would have at least 2.6 million to hedge against. So they basically covered their butts and then started nailing down the stock. So that's their hedge, I think. Or it could be a long whale. But I mean, if I was thinking logically, the May 20th $10 calls would probably be, if I was trying to short a stock down, I would make sure I covered my butt on the other side. So that's one of the other things. Let's see. Funny how no ATER posts are going through. Yeah, very funny how that works, right? Any idea why GME squeezed and not ATER? ATER squeezed before. ATER squeezed a couple times, actually. ATER squeezed back here. And ATER squeezed here, and then on a second run, and now ATER's starting to squeeze again. So, yeah, that's it. GME has squeezed before, and it actually has done it multiple times too. So, it is what it is. Yeah, so like I said, we're fine there. Reporting these to the yeah, I mean, if enough people actually, complained to the SEC, it's possible they actually pay attention because when you're a squeaky wheel, you get the oil. So if everyone keeps bothering them, they'll probably look into it just to shut us up. RAM because they're using legal tactics. Yeah, probably. The government doesn't do anything unless provoked. Yeah, I mean, so if we provoke them, they might look. So, why did I decide to buy 750 calls for this week? I usually do them deep in the money. So I was trying to swing those, and I was really close to swinging them the other day. I just wanted to swing them up, and once we got to Pier, they were profitable because I bought them the week before on the Friday, even though or the Thursday, and I thought it was going to swing up into this. Basically, what I had was on the charts I was looking at, and where I thought the wave was going to go. I thought we were going to break through temporarily to the 760 level, and then we were going to head back down. So I was trying to unload them in the money up there for a good amount of profit, and I got obviously nailed down with them. Because as soon as that happened, we didn't take that bounce up. We just went straight down from there. And so, at that point, I was still waiting for that second wave, and it never came, obviously. So that's why I did decide to do those. One of GME's drops was from 20 down to 11 before shooting up. Yeah, I mean, that's a $9 swing. For us, if we went down from 720 down to... This is where our loading zone is. I'll tell you that right now. So around, I would say this is Friday. It would probably be down here. So that's around $4 right there. That's where I would expect a pretty significant bounce in that $4 range. Basically, if I was gonna be putting out, can I make a box? All right, so this is about the $4 range. This right here in this range is where I expect a lot of loading long. Around there. This would be this loading range. So we came through here, right? We headed up. What I would expect is to back test some of these moving averages, have them load up in here going into May, and then probably move back up again. That's kind of what I would see, because, if retail maintains at least a growing sentiment that this is obviously, if more and more people see the DD, if more and more people know about what's going on here, if more and more people spread it around and other people enter this trade, it becomes a lot more uncomfortable for the shorts because, they still have to kick all these cans down the road, and eventually it culminates. And we've got, an earnings call, which is going to be right here. So there's going to be an earnings call, which if they magically surprised, that would be a catalyst. If they all of a sudden beat and actually had a decent earning, that could be the catalyst that sends this thing to the moon, And the options change over here on the 20th. So we just don't know at this point. I'm all in on $2 calls for... Yeah, I wouldn't worry about $2 calls for May personally. Not financial advice, but you're pretty safe on those. The fact that they had to compromise an entire Reddit is bullish. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty interesting. what do I need to say on the SEC reports? I mean, you can just tell them you think there's naked shorting, or if you think there's collusion happening. There's all sorts of things you can report, but naked shorting probably would suffice because they've been out of shares since March 8th, and yet somehow have taken out millions of shares. That'd be probably a good one to do. All right, so some people are submitting SEC complaints. Good job, guys. Does the carpet match the drapes? Yes. Yes, it does. Mods got compensated in Nile. All right, let's see. How does day trading affect the squeeze? Yeah, I mean, if you're day trading, obviously you're going in and out. You're allowing shares to be going in and out of the, that's what the volume's created. So you're basically tossing shares back and forth, back and forth. In some cases, if you're doing it with a lot of shares and you were long before and you start day trading in here, you're allowing some of them to become like FTD resets. So because, if your stuff was, for example, if you were holding through here, you bought these shares maybe back here, and you've been holding them through, and they were becoming an FTD, and all of a sudden you unloaded them during some day trading, then all of a sudden those FTDs get, erased. So what if retail just started shorting everything through options? No, so here's the thing. If you guys start shorting everything, if retail all of a sudden decided to short everything, they would just go long on you and squeeze you out because they have more money, and they're so yeah, in theory it's a good idea, but honestly they would just go long on you and squeeze you. They have a lot more buying power than you do. The 10 calls, yeah, so I was going to say the $10 calls will disappear because we've now moved down so much that those aren't relevant, so they won't show them unless there's open interest on them. Who won? I don't know. No, I mean, honestly, it's still ongoing. If anyone that thinks that this is it because you had basically down 30% in 2 days, when you're up from down here in the twos, that we're still up like 100%. Like, people don't look enough at the big picture. Like, this is the big picture. You're up 100% from down here. Yes. Did we go from 720 down to 460s right now? And could we go down to touch 4? Yeah, that's absolutely possible. But it doesn't mean the whole thing's over. That just means at this point they've regained control, and then when volume picks up again, it could easily run even higher. So we are not going to stop day trading. Yeah, I mean, you can't stop day trading. People day trade every stock. It doesn't matter what it is. The volume dumps short term, so we don't think we're going to go anywhere, but we will consolidate. Yeah, I mean, like, we could consolidate in this range. Like in this box right here is where I would expect consolidation to happen. Basically from like 4 something down to like probably like in the 3 range. Because it could go down to this moving average if it really wanted to. But, could it bounce off this, this point right here? Sure. And that's around like the 4 range. It's a big game of chicken to see who flinches first. Don't sell. Yeah, I mean, that's what this is. Like, I don't think they have all these shares, so I'm going to make sure I have my shares. I'm going to hold them, and eventually I'll find out if I'm right. And all of this volume and all this stuff is, if all of a sudden we wake up one morning and we've got a GameStop type candle, or if they cover in after hours one day, like, I mean, this is just what I want to show you guys. Like, this was the beginning of GameStop. Is that... I don't know. It was back here in December. But I guess for some reason I'm not able to... Maybe if I go in like the hour. All right, so right around here. This was the beginning of it, right? So we had this was the start. And I guess you can't. I guess we can zoom in a little bit. So we had some of these days where really like it was getting like really choppy. I mean, we went from like on this day right here, we went from like 37 to 44 in the same day, just up, down, like just choppy. Go back here. Let's see where that drop though, because at one point we dropped from like I think it was like 40 down to like 11 or something like that, and everyone thought everything was done. Yeah, it was like somewhere around this time frame right here where we had a couple, big runs, and then it just started bleeding, and like everyone thought, oh my god, everything's over, everything's done. We dragged on, went down another level, and then we hit down, and I think at one point we did hit 12. Like we touched off 12, and everyone thought the whole entire play was over. I think it was right here. Should that have been around November, December? Yeah, because I think I joined around this time frame when we ran up to 20. So, I mean, like, these ones right here, that was throughout a day. These ones were scary, and, they weren't that bad. But once we started chopping, like this one right here, I remember, was the one where, like, we kind of went around, and then after hours, it just got nailed down. Like, that was a really aggressive day. I mean, look at the RSI, you're below 20. Like, they did this in after hours just to mess with people because, we can't control it. People are like, I can't even buy shares. The next day, they pushed it down even more, sold more, and they got everyone really freaked out. And you know what happened right after that? We had some buying pressure the next day. And then they pushed it down even more to 12. And everyone was like, man, this play's over. And people paper-handed. And then the very next day, it started going up. And then it was going up, and it went up and up. And then it hit 16. And then that's when everything started getting fun. But, like, this is what I'm talking about. Like, this was the worst it got before it ran. And they did this on purpose. They wanted to freak out retail. If you guys realize that, like, this can be a long-term, like, just buy and hold, and we know that they don't have the shares, and keep the pressure on them, this is what it could turn into, because this was where everyone freaked out. We had ran up, everything was great, everything was consolidating, we hit a high of 20, and then they pushed it down to 12. That's an $8 swing, and that's huge. People were, losing their minds. And then right after that, it just ran up. So, I mean, it is what it is. In retrospect, would you have sold at 7? Like the bots told me to? Yeah, I mean, like, listen, so, like, yeah, I would love to sell at 7 and buy back in at 4. Yeah, everyone would have. I mean, but at this point right now, I was trading the chart that was in front of us, which was, they should not have had the amount of shares that they used, essentially. And this is what all that's happening right now is we ran up, we came up here, they started, some people took profits, some people were selling out, some people got freaked out by this, and now we're going to go back and we're going to re-enter this, like, accumulation zone. And we'll probably chop around either up here in this area by 450, or we'll do it right in this box. and then we'll do that until the next round of FTDs go, and then I expect it to run up into May. So, I mean, like, as long as you can be patient and just, if you have short-term options, you might want to reconsider rolling them into longer time frames, or if you're holding common shares, you just hold them. But at this point right now, we broke, obviously, the uptrend. We were in a nice uptrend. We broke through that right now. So what's going to end up happening is we're going to either bounce off of a moving average, or something that's going to go ahead and we'll kind of smooth out, chop around, and we might consolidate in this range. And then till the next move up, the FTDs will come out sometime around here, is my guess. So, yeah. So Ryan Cohen bought 100,000 shares, around 100 shares per, and then said to the lead exchange in chunks during trading hours, and he spent $10 million. Yeah, it'd be great to have a whale come in and buy. He was very rich already from his sale of Chewy, so how could we get this on Wall Street Bets? They have a market cap thing, but people were trying to figure out ways of doing it. I think they were comparing, this, is this the next GameStop, or, is this, somebody was asking about GameStop and then linked my DD, and, people got banned for doing it. I mean, I'm not doing it. You guys do whatever you want, but yeah, it would be nice to get more people at least learning about the whole thing. And maybe I need to write a better DD that's kind of all-encompassing, like redo the ultimate DD again, and then maybe we can figure out how to get that in front of people. Wait, Ryan Cohen bought ATER? No, he was talking about GME. Yeah, I mean, like, Wall Street Bets has market cap for a reason. It's because they're not supposed to manipulate small caps like Aterian. So, it's, it is what it is. So if they de-hedge the fives down, does that not give them more ammo to push it down further? So right now, they're basically balanced. But if they created more, like, for example, like here, like, if all of a sudden tomorrow comes in and they are buying 4,000 up here, 3,000 here, 2,000 here, and then adding some more, like, out of the money ones, and retail is sitting here not buying on this side, yeah, they'll push the price down. And then they'll de-hedge all of this stuff, and then they'll hedge all this stuff, and then we'll send the price down to probably about where I told you in that chart, which is about like 350 to 4, somewhere in this range. So that's what can happen. All right, so let's see. So in addition to so we actually have more, I think it's about 10 million shares are officially short, Charles. If I remember correctly, I think it's around like 10 million shares short, which is why it's about 40% of the float. Let's see. A fat green volume bar would make me cry. Yeah, I mean, if we can get that, that'd be great. I mean, we're getting to the point now, like, if you look at the RSI on the 1 hour, we are oversold. So, like, I expect this to curl up a little bit and then even out. So even if we just consolidate tomorrow, and then maybe move slightly higher, just to, like, but, like, Friday's where it's going to matter. Like, if we can finish over 5 by Friday, that'd be really bullish. But we'll see. I mean, it all depends on what's going to happen here. There's a good amount of conversation popping up on Twitter about the convenient breakdown of Reddit, the ATER mentions being suppressed on short squeeze. We need to hop on that and push this message out. Yeah, I agree there, Tara. I mean, like, it is definitely one of those things where all that stuff seems very convenient. And it, just like when Reddit went down during GameStop at one point, like, it just, all that stuff seems to be, like, they do DDoS attacks on, like, Reddit when they're doing huge financial things because they want to make sure they shut us all up. Wall Street Bets, they took down the server when the squeeze was going on. Like, they do all sorts of things. All right, sorry. Did you see that big green spike around 12:30 Central Time? like today. How would you find the logic in the sudden volume drop today versus yesterday? So I think retail had used a lot of their ammo because retail's been buying for the last like 2 weeks the stock, and I think they started running out of ammo. And so at this point, retail, once they run out of ammo and that they're not bringing in new people constantly, these guys, if they get even just the slightest drop in volume, they can manipulate the crap out of a stock. I mean, that's the honest truth. Like a small cap like this, if there's no volume, they can just bleed this thing down. I know for a fact they do that because I've watched the stock for 9 months when there was no volume, and I watched them do this like on the daily. Like if the OG, like all those guys remember, this is a normal chart to us. Like we watch this happen every single day for like 15 days in a row at times. Like if you don't have volume on the stock, this is what's going to end up happening. So it's a matter of getting the word out there and presenting the information the right way. And I mean, I came on here on YouTube when I really didn't want to come on YouTube because I just had no interest in doing it. And some of the guys at least were like, listen, you don't have to show your face, but I feel like you need to at least explain to people in like a not just Reddit way, some of this information because it might be clearer to them if they listen to you. So, I mean, trying, but yeah. So let's see. Options, closing, selling drove down the price today. Discounts are the result. Yep, and that's true. I mean, if you're looking to go long, these are nice prices to go in at near market value. Or not book value, sorry. If I buy a out-of-the-money $5 call out like August, will the premiums be affected as much as the close-up? I mean, you're going to pay more for the theta. That's what the difference is. And it's not going to affect the stock price as of right now because you have like basically a lot of time until those are due. So they're not your market maker is not going to hedge those fully because they're too far out. They've got to hedge these things that are in the weeklies because the theta is about to run out and you're going to be either in the money or out of the money. So those ones have more impact on like, fully hedging or de-hedging. So yeah, it won't, your theta basically won't be that affected for if you're buying in August. But you also are creating a lot of buy pressure for right now. But those are safer at least. So let's see. Realistically, can ATER move before the 20th? Yeah, I mean, it can. Like I said, if we just had a good earnings call, like I just showed you here, right? May 5th is right here-ish, right? Is it the next one? May 4th. Here's May 5th. So May 5th is, where are we at? 6. So this is the 5th. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It's 11 trading days away before earnings. If, for example, we beat on earnings and we've been consolidating and chopping around here and a retail is just accumulating shares and holding on to them while FDDs, which come out around here-ish, show that there's like a huge amount of FTDs, what's going to end up happening is it will start moving up then, and then by the time earnings comes, if they can't short that, I mean, they're going to short earnings no matter what happens. I'm just going to tell you guys that right now. They could be the best beat in the world. They will find some reason to short it because that's what they do. But that could be the catalyst that or institutions start buying again. And if institutions started buying Aterian, then they're going to squeeze the crap out of the shorts because their stuff hits the lit exchange and they have a lot of buying power. So is John Bickerton, is he a shill? Because it kind of sounds like he is. I'm just throwing that out there. Kind of sounds, because everything he's been saying is kind of shillish. Is he like a smart shill? He's actually blending in, not throwing up laser eyes. Give me advice. I'm down 45% of my portfolio, all securities, no options, no. If you're commons, you can just hold. That's what I would do at this point. Like, I mean, it's, pay back your margin if you've used your borrow power, but like, I would not. Number one, don't use margin, especially when the market's like this. But what I would do at this point right now is you can just hold tight. If you're not playing options, sometimes the best move is no move at all. So, what's it take for a gamma like the Volkswagen Squeeze? So the Volkswagen Squeeze was weird because that one, if I remember correctly, it was because Porsche basically bought up all the shares out from underneath them, the shorts, and then they locked it up because the other person that owned the majority of Volkswagen was actually I think it was like some sort of municipal like government. It was a quasi government like thing, and they don't buy and sell things. So Porsche basically knew that they would never buy or sell shares because it was like a quasi government long term thing, and so they basically bought out the float underneath these shorts, and then they had every share. And the shorts didn't realize it, and then by the time they figured it out, they were getting squeezed, and they ended up having to like go to a bargaining table and say, "Hey, listen, please take off the hurt, and we will give you basically X amount of dollars." And so that's what they ended up doing. So Porsche acted like a long hedge fund and squeezed the crap out of shorts. It was pretty interesting. Reading some people's things. No, Zechariah, FTDs are not due today. I was going to say. That's not how it works. Kind of sounds shillish too, though. Definitely. So you have puts, basically. All right, let's see. Just reading through people's stuff. They had Shaking Tree. All right, so I'm just reading through. Sounds like Zachariah short, and just saying some folks, these plays can't hold. Yeah, it is what it is. All right, some people are filing SEC complaints. That's good. Would the big January, June, December leap expirations affect Aterian? I mean, it depends on how long this thing goes. Let's see. All right, so I've just caught up to the chat, so I should be good now. Hen M. So you want to know basically how so GameStop, yeah, there was nostalgia for those communities. People grew up going to GameStops, going to the movies. With Aterian, it's not as well known of a company, so it's a little bit different as far as that go. But I think the one thing that Aterian has right now is Aterian actually called out naked shorting, which was very unusual because even those big companies like GameStop and AMC have never actually admitted that there was naked shorting. This small company had the balls to actually call it out, and then they got buried. So, I mean, I think I showed you guys on the chart. If I go to the daily, they called out naked shorting, I think around here-ish. It was like, I want to say it was around here. Like, it was in October, I think. It was like either like in October, November. And if you look at where they ended up from that time when they called out naked shorting, which is about like here-ish, like in this range, they got buried. They went from like $10, $12 a share down to $2.10 for calling out naked shorting. So I think that in a sense is a way that and Home Lab is a very well known brand in Amazon. That's part of their product showcase. They have Squatta Potty. They've got the Spiralizer, Mullen, Pull and Schmidt. They've got a couple of brands that people would recognize. But I think the fact that the CEO was at least had the balls to call out naked shorting, which most companies wouldn't have the balls to do, and they paid the price. I mean, you can tell. I mean, part of it, sure, is the business part of it, but these shorts took like offense, and they basically tried to bury the company. And I think if that's the one thing that if we could somehow pass that message on that this was a company that attempted to actually say something about how corrupt and bad the system is, it would probably end up, like maybe inspiring more people to be like, oh, you know what? I'm willing to support a company that's willing to, be on retail side. Like they put out shirts for us. Like they they put out Gator shirts for us. I mean, if you look at the website, like they listen to retail. We had told them that, we wanted to support the company in some way possible, and they ended up actually putting out like T-shirts for us, which I thought was, like, sure, it's not going to save their business, but at the same time, like the fact that they were willing to at least like listen to us, talk about silly things like putting out a T-shirt when their business model is not that, they still did it, and they made the prices pretty affordable for retail. They didn't try to like gouge us. So like, let's pull up so you guys can see. Yes, I mean, like, I don't know where did they put those? Was it brands? No. Is it maybe shareholder perks? I didn't find it last time, so investor relations. I mean, this is a company, they just appointed new board members that came from Microsoft and Amazon. They also appointed a new COO, and they were named the 166th fastest growing company in the Americas. So, I mean, like, they've got things going on for it, Where is... I'll have to find it. Yeah, anyone know where it is on the product page, maybe? Is it product page? But I think it was interesting that they actually were willing to, listen to us and, give us something that we wanted, which, like when you're a huge company, normally that doesn't like. So yeah, I mean, like, I think Aterian could be, for example, I'm looking for basically, Charles, I was looking for the Aterian like product page that had the T-shirts on it. I don't remember what it was offhand. Somebody linked it to me yesterday, and I just was showing it off, or maybe it was 2 days ago. But yeah, like Aterian's got a bunch of things going for it. I just think at this point right now, I'd love to see retail understand what happened to this company. Like, I don't think they'd be cool with a company that called that naked shorting, especially after GameStop and all this stuff. This company calls that naked shorting up here and gets buried down to 210, and they're trying to put them out of business. Like, there's a story there that's waiting to be told, I think. I noticed earlier that buying the 50-cent strike and then exercising would be the same cost as buying 100 shares outright, but exercise contracts are delivered through the lit market and add pressure. Yeah, it's true. And they have 2+2 to get those to you. They don't have to do it right then, but... Oh, so they gated it. I guess they had... they must have just shown us that they were working on it, and then they pulled the product because people were trying to order it or something. So, but yeah, I mean, they're in the process of doing that, so I think that's pretty cool. I think, yeah, in the long run, I'd like to see a company not get buried because they called out something that's wrong with the market. Because, I mean, I'm just going to show you this. How this went down. So you go on SSR this day, and then this day you bleed the entire day. Like, the entire day. I mean, we're down here in like 19 RSI at one point. You're not supposed to, short on upticks or on downticks, and yet there was definitely shorting on downticks, which means the market maker was also helping. So, thanks for doing this. I'm learning a lot. Oh, good. I was gonna say, thanks for coming out. I do these every once in a while. I try to answer questions for people. If I know them, they answer. If not, then do the shares sold onto the dark pool eventually show up on the lit market? No, they never do. Or they basically, what ends up happening is your shares go off market and then they just get washed out. So they never count towards any buying. They will have to deliver them eventually to you in the T plus system. But yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you could afford to, buy in the money options, that would be something that obviously would put buying pressure back on. Most people think that, oh, I'm buying shares, I'm helping, but honestly, it's not adding buying pressure, at least not in this stock, because our stuff never actually hits the lit exchange, and that's part of the problem. When Gary Gensler says that, who's the chairman of the SEC, he goes, yeah, 90 to 95% of all retail trades never actually hit the lit exchange. Like, yeah, that's not a good thing. So it's one of these things now that I'd like to get this information out to retail so they understand how this all works. Because if you don't understand how this works and you're making some of these decisions, it's like, sure, you're buying call or shares, and that's great. No, AMC never called that naked shorting. In fact, Adam Aron specifically said there was no evidence of naked shorting. So Adam Aron did not call them out. Beep boop. All right. So now you guys kind of link to sweaters. Oh yeah, so they all right, they want me to look at an option chain real quick. All right, so you guys want me to look at the 2250 strike for May 20th. Yeah, so there's like 10,000 contracts. So that's about 1 million shares up there. The reason why they're up there is because they're dirt cheap, and that's what retail buys. And sometimes big guys buy just for an IV spike. So what they do is they go through and they wait for a large IV spike, and then they'll just sell them off. So, but yeah, those options that are just sitting up there, they're like 8 cents. So it's like $80. Like, it's not a lot of money, and people are just playing those for like basically like if we get like a runaway situation. It's usually retail that plays those, and they don't ever play them right, and so they ended up losing them. But yeah. They need retail to be. Yeah, I was gonna say, so there's a whole reason why I do these streams, is because I'm trying to just inform retail traders how some of this stuff works, because I know what it's like to come into the market and not know how some of this stuff fits together. And so what you end up seeing is you see a lot of this, like they take advantage of retail traders all the time. And like when I'm sitting there watching, I guess I realized once I started the Discord that people didn't. I just assumed most traders knew what I knew, and so I didn't realize that I had to kind of explain a lot of this stuff because I just thought that everyone had like read some books and started investing like I did, and in the case is a lot of people just jump in and start trading and they have no idea what they're looking at, and then they start losing tons of money, and then and you can still know what you're doing and lose tons of money. I mean, I took a huge hit today too, just like you guys did. But it's one of those things where like I saw this happening. I was like, I know what's going on. They're de-hedging and they're just making all this. So yeah, but let's see. Why did somebody just ask me? Okay. They weren't shorting that much today. They got enough downward pressure on the stock that they got basically the market makers to de-hedge, and that did most of the price movement by itself. Because they're low, once they were on low volume, they just were able to push down, and once they started de-hedging, that's where most of the selling was actually coming from. So, and it's possible, like they could have also had like a long position closed today. I mean, that could have also been a factor. Like if they convinced like maybe like a buddy of theirs, like, hey, listen, I know you got those like million shares of Aterian. If you could just get rid of those so I can get this thing down, that'd be great. Like that also could have happened. We just won't know until the 13Fs are filed. So, but how could the cost to borrow go down? So because some shares were freed up today, Mike, I mean, here's the honest truth. Some people paper handed today. I mean, or yesterday. It was going up, and they said, no, I'm done. So they pushed it down, and then at this point right now, they've got to figure out where do they go from here? Because if they shorted up here at the 7 mark, they're profitable right now. But if we start consolidating here, they'll probably start closing their positions, which will send us back up to probably like around 5. It really just depends on their conviction of shorting the stock from like 7 down to basically 4 or 5. And then do they get out or they try to repush it down? That's their decision. But some people started shorting here, and I think even some retail started shorting in the 7s, and that's fine. Like that's their prerogative to do that. But yeah, it does obviously slow down momentum for the longs, but at the same time, I think a good amount of people shorted the stock at 7. And then, obviously this is them de-hedging and the 750s, the 7s. And then here they were able to get enough downward pressure to get us to basically get hedged out, de-hedged, and then the puts hedged. And that's why we're down here now at max pain. So they basically, on low volume, they were able to just completely, because look at the volume on today. Here's yesterday. There was that big buy spike, and then they sold off. And then this was sustained buying, but right here you had sustained selling, and you just never got volume at all. These were good buy days. And they're buying in like spikes, basically. So, anyway, like I said, the cost of borrow can go down because some shares got freed up here, so there's not as much demand. Now, we're still 100% utilization, and we're still on reg show. So, I mean, they were able to get enough shares back where the demand was not as high. Like, they were desperate for, shares before. Now they got a couple of them there, so. I just popped in the chat late, but I saw that Reggie Miller. What is the price point that we could drop to that the squeeze pressure is relieved, that the shorts have won? So as long as retail is holding on to shares, this is basically an area of accumulation, is my guess. Is like this could be, if they shorted up here, this is where they would probably close, and then we'd probably be hanging out in the like 450 range. Like basically from like 3 to basically like 450 would be where I would imagine them chopping around to consolidate. I don't think they can get back down to this level anymore unless massive amounts of retail left. And at this point right now, I think the fact that retail, I mean, this is not like a normal thing. Like you don't usually go down this far on that kind of swing. Like we are very much getting into the oversold portion. And so you're going to see at least this start to curl up, and then you're going to see this kind of evening out into like Friday. So that's why Max Payne is there. They were able to do this, but yeah, the float's gone. That's the thing. Let's see. But yeah, I was going to say, I don't think there's a point at this. The FTDs next week are going to really matter, because that's what's going to kind of inform people how bad this got during this run. Because if the FTDs are spiking all throughout here, and they're growing each day, and then it cuts off, because we only get, I think, 15 days worth of stuff. So if we find out that from here to here, essentially, the FTDs are growing, that means that FTDs could still be growing here, but they're just not, telling us, obviously, until the end of or beginning of May. So the FTDs will play a huge factor into what goes on and how much stuff goes there. We got to get Anon to create his own live chat and quit his job. Go pay so we can get this guy back on. Yeah. I mean, like, I'm happy to stream for you guys when I can, but let's see. Why do you think retail is not evolving while the market clearly did and figured out a way to control any influence retail did have? Hold on. Why did you think that the retail is not evolving while the market clearly did and figured out a way to completely control any influence retail did have? So, like, obviously, I think you're talking about, like, the sub getting taken down was a huge factor. Like, the short squeeze sub had 120K people in it, and that was a major point that I was able to post DD in there, and lots of eyes would see it. Today was kind of like a really interesting day that it happened to go down that morning. Maybe it's all coincidence, maybe it's not. From what I understand, they were scrubbing stuff on all these different sites, like the different subreddits, and also on like StockTwits. There's a lot of things that I think go into. I think retail kind of rested on their laurels, and I think they also got to this point where they were so bullish they stopped actually trying to, like, get the word out there. I mean, if you look at, for example, this, they started stacking this stuff and up here and stopped doing anything down here, which was the safer bets. And what ended up happening was, because they were able to, like, the shorts knew what they were doing, and the market makers knew what they were doing, because they obviously were able to push this down and gamma ramp it back in this direction, while everybody was sitting here, like, celebrating, thinking about how 20s and stuff like that were going to go. I knew there was going to be an Elliott wave that was going to probably get pushed up, and I thought that it was going to go up to about 760 to 775 area, but it went only to 720, and then it got pushed down. And it got pushed down because there was a ton of in-the-money puts that got pushed, started pushing it down. And then once it got kind of went, they started de-hedging some of these, and then that's what caused off a lot of the, like, selling pressure. But obviously, like, that's one of the things that we have to, like, figure out now, is because if there was all of a sudden a huge amount of interest down here again, that would push this back up. This stuff would start getting hedged. So it's a battle. It's just a matter of, is retail coming back? Are they buying more down in this area, or are they waiting till another week? Or are they just buying common shares and holding them? The FTDs next week are going to matter a huge amount, because we're going to see how many FTDs are starting to mount up. We're still on reg show, which means that at least 5% of the float's at least shorted, at least 5% of the float failed to deliver, which is a huge amount, and it probably is higher than that based off of what we've seen for the volume. So that is going to play a factor into what's going to go on in the next couple of days to weeks. Let's see. Red cars, don't use your yeah. We lost a battle today. There's still a war. There's still a lot. No, the old ape mentality. trying to see old ape mentality. Are you talking about like AMC and those ones, Kenny? I've got to catch up on the chat. Okay. Do you have any idea what big firms loaded up? Somebody asks, do you have any idea why big firms loaded up the 520 calls and then let it tank? So it's possible for the 520 ones that those actually were a hedge. So those could have been a hedge to basically allow that if they lost control, they would be able to cover at $10 a share. That way, if it ran, then it would do, a thing. Like they basically would be able to cover at a certain price. The other option is they could have just been a long whale that's being patient and waiting for this IV to get crushed and then starting to load up each, week. If he doesn't feel like pushing it this week, he may roll these contracts to the next week. They did roll a good amount of these, and some of them I think were naked, which is, an interesting thing because that means they're tying up some of the float inside the options chains for the thing going back. Ape is AMC. Number one voted comment for Wall Street bets for tomorrow. What is Aterian is? Or Kenny is talking about how the old GME apes had sparked social media by storm and allowed the masses to overtake the shorts. He's asking why aren't we doing... Wait. Hold on. Kenny is talking about how the old GameStop apes had a spark that took social media by storm and allowed the masses to overtake the shorts. And he's asking why aren't we having as much success anymore? Okay, so I think there's two things. GameStop and AMC obviously they had the nostalgia factor, and they also had name recognition. Aterian right now doesn't have that. So I think maybe the part of the problem is we're not telling the story right. As far as like some of the people that, like myself, like that's a DD writer, I'm not going deep enough into why these guys got buried. Like when they called out, for example, let me go over here. So when they called out naked shorting way back, I have to go to the daily. When they called naked shorting out back here in like October, November, sometime like that, since then they got buried from there all the way down to 210. That's like a $8, $9, $10 swing depending on where it was exactly. I think the first one they called out was like around this time frame. So I mean that's like a $12 swing, $8, $10 swing, something like that. So they got buried. Like they got buried for calling out naked shorting, basically. And then people like me probably didn't do a good enough job actually saying like the reason why these guys got buried was because they dared speak out. Like the narrative, I've been trying to just put out information, but one of the things I probably should do is we're not putting out the right messaging that would attract more people to understand what Aterian is, what they do, and that's something I should consider. Maybe when I write the next DD, I'm going to say this is the reason why you should care, because this could happen to any small cap, medium cap, large cap, whatever it is. But yeah, so listen, so we're down 30%. We are still up 100% from where we started down here the month. So, I mean, it is what it is. Let me go back up because I saw there was not being a shill or whatever, but it's really the last time it worked. ATER is the Gators. David, it's a one day. It's a battle in the war. Media played a role. Yeah, the media still plays a role, but in this case, he's saying exactly, we're doing the same old shit, and clearly it's not working. I mean, all right, so Aterian was in a free fall right here. And this is where this day right here was a Friday. And I wrote a DD. I believe it was basically the one that was comparing the three major squeeze stocks and why warrants mattered, all that kind of stuff. And this was retail going, huh. And then we got some chatter on, Reddit. And then going into this week, we had major buy pressure. And then we had major buy pressure. And then people were getting excited. And then this day right here happened, which was 2 days ago. And what ended up happening was we ran up here. And at this point right here, we crossed over the 200. Everything was looking great. And I think we lost steam. And I think if you look at the volume, we were good. And then we had no volume today. I don't know if it's because retail had already spent all their money getting, in up here. And now what they're doing is they're trying to shake out the tree. But we had volume that first day. We had volume, the next day. Then we had low volume. Then we had volume this day, and we had volume really this day. And then since then, it's kind of been like less volume, but it's still like decent volume. But this is when they started really shorting it down. And this day on very low volume, we got crushed. That's the truth of it. Like, we got crushed on volume. And why that is, I think there were a lot of other things going on in the market. And, at this point, we had down, we go down 10% here, and then we had a 20% down. We were still up 100% from down here, but the volume obviously slowed up. And on that cue, those guys took advantage of it. And this was an important day also because Wednesday, they have to start really trying to hedge or de-hedge certain positions. And so they took advantage of a low volume day. The fact is, though, social media did play a factor, and we did get volume after that weekend, and then we kind of, we had many good days in a row going up from there. The last 2 days, though, it slowed down, and maybe it's because people weren't, pushing it as far. Maybe, who knows why the reasons are. But we lost this day right here. We lost that major sub that we were posting to and getting a lot of eyes on it. So all of this day, we couldn't get a message out to 120K people, and during that time, people panic, and that's honestly what happens. They shake the tree, and people don't have a source to look to, and I think they did that on purpose, to be honest. And all right. It's very obvious that the hedge funds are trying to bury us. Yeah, I mean they're trying to destroy ATER. That is true. Spreading the story about the CEO calling it ATER. Yeah, I think that's an interesting idea, and I think that's probably the more human story in this that would relate to people, and I haven't really been doing that. How do I feel about upcoming earnings? I don't know at this point. I have to go back and look at the historic ones. I think this quarter they were still dealing with the shipping stuff, so it's probably going to be like in line with where the analysts probably have it. There could be a slight beat. I mean, they've had historically, I think, stronger second and third quarters, if I remember correctly. Their fourth and first are usually not the best, but that's just off the top of my head if I remember correctly, if it's the same stock. But yeah, this community is building. Like, we started with not a lot of people, and we were stagnant for months. Like, when Aterian was a falling knife during this time right here, especially into like the fall, into the winter, I mean, I think we had like 2 extra people added to the subreddit, and this time frame right here, we added like 3,000 people to the subreddit. So there are people coming in now, and a lot of people are buying. A lot of people are down and buying higher amounts, though. Yeah. Somehow we got to get this out to the masses, like GameStop. Yeah, I mean, I'm on YouTube talking about it. I mean, I'm doing what I can. I mean, if you have I discussed yet of doing a We Are the World remix to their site? No, I have not. When we broke out of this, we were on the ground level at the threes. Most are in this level. Yeah, I mean, like, so some people entered this down here, and so they're able to, a lot of us averaged down and got into this range, into this, like, 6 down to, like, 4 range. But, like, there's a lot of people that started out down here, and they're going to hold because they're profitable. And even if they get down here, they're not that worried about it because your downside risk is right here. Like, they had trouble keeping it down here because we even saw some buying pressure when it was that low. Because when it's $2 a share, you can buy a lot of it when you're retail. And even if you're not like buying huge amounts, if you have a couple thousand people that are buying those shares, we hit utilization at 100% here. So they even pushed it down with 100% utilization right there. And even when we're going up here, they've been shorting all of this entire time, 60% all the way up until today. And somehow today was their lowest volume day as far as shorting. So either something's wrong with the reporting, or there's a couple of explanations that I think I told you guys about. Have you talked about Matt? No, I've never talked to Matt Kors and True. I've never talked to them before. I mean, I'm getting my my start here. So, Trey, what platform are you using? OBS Studio. I blame Netflix. I mean, yeah. A lot of people bought above 5 because of the DD. Yeah, I mean, I've been writing the DD since back here. I mean, like, I was writing DD, I think, around this time frame. Like, around here is when I first came in. I think it was like September something. So, I mean, like, they had a really good option setup. They had a huge gamma ramp, and the market makers completely burned them. Like me too. I had some options up here too. But I was trying to buy more like in the money options and ones that were closer, and because people were buying like $20 options, and I was like, those are never going to hit. We bounced off there before. That's not an area that I would have gone for. But I really started actually buying heavily once the stock got down to the 4s, because like that was book value, and I was like, okay, I'm fine buying shares at book value. And then it went all the way down, and once it crossed over this point right here, it didn't make sense anymore because that was current assets. Post links, YouTube discussion, Reddit. Before finding it randomly, this felt like some crazy pun. Didn't they have short restriction? Yeah, they had short restrictions, and we had we got absolutely slammed today, even on short restriction. That's the market does not. There's like blue poles everywhere. Like, you're supposed to not be able to get like attack like that, but a market maker can easily go ahead. Like, I'll show you this real quick. Like, the beginning of the day, you're not supposed to be able to short on downticks, right? So the only way they could have gotten this going, this especially like here, was the market maker was helping them. So the market maker was helping them really just slam it down. Retail bought back in. They allowed retail to buy back in, and then this is when they just started on low volume. They just started slamming, like bid whacking, slamming, and that's what they do. Is like they offloaded a bunch of like shares quickly to make it kind of just bleed off, and that's what they kept doing. And then they would spike a really big like waterfall, like right here. This was like a decent amount of candles there. And it's all, the only intention is to just get retail freaked out and you can tell, like, every time retail would just come back, try to buy, and then they would bleed off more. And this is when retail stopped getting, like, as, like, I think they were out of ammo or whatever it was. But basically, they were like, we don't know how far this is going to go. So down here, we kind of bottomed out, and then retail started buying in again. And so what we'll probably see for tomorrow is, this is where we closed up. you can see right here, by the time tomorrow rolls around, oops, sorry, let me zoom out. I don't know why it's not letting me zoom out. That's because it's not tomorrow yet. That's why. Yeah, so if I go back to the daily, I guess what we will expect is, maybe we should do the 1 hour. Yeah. So we're already oversold on the 1 hour. And you can see that this is starting to curl up on the MACD. So what we should see is some evening out. And even if we hit this bottom zone, which is around 4, that's where I would expect us to start curling up and then start moving back up again. They're going to try to push it down as far as they can. They need retail to sell their shares. Like, that's just the truth. So this all, this is one of those things where, like, if retail, like, we had retail's interest, and then they cut off our communication to the major, like, sub right here, and that's when everything kind of went down. We had low volume. People were not, like, hyped up. We went from 120,000 people looking at those posts to like 10,000 that were already in on the stock. So that's a huge difference. Like, we were getting exposure to people that were new when we had access to, like, short stock or short squeeze. And once that was gone, there was all of a sudden a void of buyers that were new getting exposed to Aterian. And so that's why I think the volume fell off a lot today, was because all of a sudden we didn't have a place to post that was getting a lot of eyes. That's one of the reasons why I think the stock went down so much today, because the volume was gone because we lost that sub. I really do believe that. Yeah, you're supposed to only be able to short on an uptick, but yeah, it definitely was being shorted on downticks, which means that the market maker was helping with that. So there are no good trading companies that will actually record your shares. They all go to the dark pool. You can route it through, if you have like certain brokers, you can route it through different exchanges. IEX is one of the ones that is a lit exchange that is a little fair, a little more fair, but let's see. But it went down yesterday when the sub was up. It ran up and then it went down 10%, which was not that bad. But I think this is where, like, there was no more posting. There was no more, like, it locked up before the market opened. And then, there was no wave to reach all of a sudden that amount of people. Yeah, so this is not really so much a pump and dump as it is basically like, this stock has had a history. And if you look back at the full chart, this stock has ran up, ran down. Like, this was at 142, and then it went up here to $48 a share. And it got all the way whacked down. Shorts really went heavy around this time frame right here. And then this is where the stock hit 304 and then bounced up. This was a short squeeze. This was a secondary FTD squeeze. And then they mentioned naked shorting, and then they got buried again all the way down to 210. And then we're just starting to come out of that right now. So, yeah, this is not just a pump and dump. This is a highly manipulated stock that I believe they have lots of shares that don't belong in this float. Will it dip the rest of the week? I think it's going to probably even out, to be honest with you. I think we're going to probably be hanging around the 4 to 450 level if we don't get volume. That's just where it will consolidate. And then next week will be a different story. How much did Reddit get for locking up the page? That's a good question. I mean, like, it's very convenient the way it actually went. So, I mean, listen, multiple points of coordination, Marine. Yeah, I mean, there needs to be, yeah, there's lots of stuff that we're not doing. Like, I've never posted to Instagram. I've never posted to Facebook. I've never posted to TikTok. There's all sorts of people that don't know about this, and we could make them interested in it, if they understood, like, why it's special, why it's, like, sure. It's one of those things where I think I've just been posting to Reddit and assuming that everybody else was just sharing it, and maybe they're not. I don't know. I know we were getting a lot of views when we were on the short squeeze doc. I mean, I was seeing that we would get sometimes like 40 to 50,000 views on those, and then all of a sudden that was gone today. So, ATER stock is smaller, so I don't think they froze that. And also, I'm also a mod of that one, so I don't think they have any, like, recourse of, like, I guess they could report me, but I'm not actually the one that runs that sub. I don't actually have, so I'm not the owner of that sub. I just am a moderator, but I'm the only active moderator, if I remember correctly. Yeah, so somebody was saying there are bots that sort through the short squeeze and scam and commonly mentioned and then spam it all over social media. Now that Reddit is down, they can't get that media engagement. So, yeah, I mean, Twits talked about this the other day. Why isn't there a halt when ATER was getting destroyed? They did slow enough. It was like a slow enough bleed out that they didn't trip any breakers. That's all it was. Like, if you do a certain like percentage down, like right here, they would have gone maybe close to it if they kept going down to like here. If I think it's a certain percentage, or I have to look at I'm tired, sorry. But there's a certain amount that they have to go down before they hit a breaker. And it's the speed of it, and it's, how many things to go. But, what was Paul G's question? I have to scroll up. Hold on. What kind of indicators should we be looking for that squeeze may be softening or altogether over? So at this point right now, the May options are still very much loaded. And I'll be looking to see, as long as those numbers are growing, it's obviously still alive. And the other thing is the FTDs next week will be a huge portion of like what we find out, because obviously if they're not delivering shares and that number is huge, or if it's growing, that means that they're in trouble because they have sold more things than they actually do. So, okay. Why would retail as a whole sit on largely profitable call options? Seems to give market makers more incentives to beat it down closer to the strike price. I mean, typically retail will sit there and hold on. Just make sure I understand. Why would retail sit on largely profitable call options? It seems to me it gives the market makers even more incentive to beat it down. Yeah, because retail is looking for, obviously the next. If you looked at the chart, let's go back real quick. If you go back to the daily chart, there was no breakdown. We were in an up channel, and we were in control, it looked like. That's basically why, Kenny. So if you're looking through here and you're looking at this chart was very bullish up until basically today. Today is where they broke through, and now we are no longer in that up channel. So from a TA's perspective, the reason why those people were holding their call options up there was because it looked like there was more upside to that. They took advantage of a light volume day, and they absolutely just hammered it down. If there was volume again, this is just going to fly back into that channel. So that's why. But yeah, I was going to say, as long as this was in this up channel, retail was going to keep buying and holding and pressing it up. Once we broke down, obviously now at this point right now, we have to see what happens, because if, say, for tomorrow happens and all of a sudden a wheel comes in and sits down on the options chain and knocks us back into this up channel, you would trade that chart just the same way. And then those calls would probably be all in the money at that point, and then retail would probably exercise them. That's why. Just so you know, the majority of retail holders are longs. Yeah. So, and some of the toots are at 22. So yeah, most of these people are holding long term. Are there metrics between FTD releases that could hint for a pullback, though? Yeah, I mean, if there were no FTDs, then that would be obviously a sign that the things are, not the way we think they are. That they have millions of shares, that just came out of nowhere, but apparently they are accounted for. That's what it would mean. But if the FTD numbers are high, meaning that, on Ortex, I think you can see how high they actually get, or you can visually, or you can just look at the FTD numbers themselves. But as the FTDs grow, that usually means that there are shares that do not belong in a float there. So that's what you would do with that information. But yeah, if the FTDs were super low, if you only had like 1,000 or 100,000 FTDs, and they weren't growing, then yeah, that would indicate that would, that's not a good thing for, a squeeze play. Because the theory, basically the thesis is this: it's that we have been locked up since this date for utilization. That means that there are not a lot of shares to borrow. Yet we've traded 1 billion shares in volume since then. And so what that indicates is they're on a very small float. That means that you would expect these FTDs to probably be at least growing if they're having to trade all this volume out. So the hedge funds made us buy around 650, then reverse psychology. Let me explain. They're putting bots on everything that said the squeeze is over at 7. So sad. Yeah, I mean, the bots on here said it was going to go down at 7, and then when they actually went down at 7, then everyone went, "Oh, the play's over," and that's what they want from you. But I mean, the fact that we're still getting bots on even this YouTube channel is like, why? If the battle's over, then why are they still here? The mods already banned them out earlier, but we had plenty of bots on here, and they keep saying, now 10, it's 10 is, it's never going to go over 10. Well, you guys just told us it was never going to go over 7. It went over 7. And if this is over, then you wouldn't even be here because somebody's paying for you to be here. So the FTD data should come out at the end of the month. So that would be sometime next week, probably. An hour battle from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern. There was a 1 million candle dragged down to... Hold on. An hour battle from 2 to 3 p.m. at $5 a day. At the top of the hour, there was a 1 million candle dragged down to 470 range. It seemed like smart money. They may have just been conserving energy or ammo, because essentially fighting for Wednesday when Friday's the day that really matters for what's going to be in the money. They could easily just slap the ass the entire Friday and send the stock higher if they want to. But why would you do it? Spend all your resources on, Wednesday. Today was important, but at that point, everything was already de-hedged. So what was the point of, fighting for 5 if, tomorrow is more important for those ones? Brian Friedman says, why Reddit being down. So the short squeeze community was taken down today, and that was the day we got obviously some of the least amount of volume. And we got absolutely just nailed as far as the stock goes. So let's see. Cheer up, Anon. You got this. Thank you. No, I mean, it just, I'm trying to be, realistic. We, obviously today was not a great day, but at the same time, is it over? No, it's not over. I mean, at this point, I looked at the numbers as far as like right here. We'll go back to this. They basically bought these right here. There was nine. That's a good chunk of change they spent right here to try to drive this down underneath 5. And they got that. They spend a good amount of money to do that. If all of a sudden retail or institutions were to start stacking up stuff down here, that would push this, and then we start having to hedge these and de-hedge these. And so if the stock price goes up, there's a lot more stuff up here than there is up here. So that means they would have to spend more money up here to actually help drive that down. So I mean, really what it looks like is if longs and retail, if there was more volume coming in tomorrow, they could easily right the ship and they could actually push this back up where they have to re-hedge these 5s. And there's a good amount of stuff there. So this is a very important level in this area right here, because if more volume comes in and we start seeing buying pressure, this will push this up. These will get hedged again. Then it will start this chain reaction of these then start having to get hedged. So, I mean, this is not over yet. I mean, they can try to push it down tomorrow. They've obviously spent some money to try to do that, because you can see down here, they've bought a whole bunch of stuff to try to slide this down for like a reverse gamma ramp. But the same goes through on this side. Like they can easily push that through. And, if somebody was trying to actually put the stock up back, where it was, boom, like you would fly up, because once they start having to hedge these, then they have to hedge these, and that's how it goes. We need some media visibility. Yeah. So the problem is the Aterian right now is on a cool down period, so they can't do anything. I actually wrote them even today and just said, "Are you able to speak?" And they're like, "No, we're not able to speak about anything until after May 5th." So the CEO doing buybacks change anything? Yeah, I mean, like obviously they do have some cash right now, and it would have made more sense to buy back in like the 2s. But the stock moved pretty quick up from there, and so they didn't really have a chance to actually do something like that. That would have been great, though, to be able to reduce the float. Sorry, I'm reading people's questions. Sorry, but yeah, it would have been great to if they reduced that down. What did you write, Anna? Did you see my question? I'm going back. Did hedge funds load up on 10 to shake us like they did at 7? Since bots were saying 10, that was just one bot or trolling. Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, I've obviously, like, I think they loaded up on 10s to hedge themselves. So they knew they were going to push the stock price down, I guess. And so, we interpreted that as long whales were buying 10s because we were going to go up. And really, it could have been a hedge fund that was just basically buying a 10 to make sure that they backstop themselves to, if they were going to push us down, and if we all of a sudden had enough buying pressure to push them back up, they could at least cover at 10. That would be my guess. Could it still be a long whale? Maybe, but it is. Let's see. When this starts moving up on the retail's radar, regardless of media, they will have the most uptick volume. Hits over 2% move, 5% move. Yeah, I mean, if we even moved up 5%, all these things would start having to get hedged again. So, and on your old man out. Yep. Thanks for hanging out, Paul. I think I'm going to be ending it soon because I'm starting to get tired. I got some more research to do tonight. But, yeah. Anyone else have any more questions before I go? then I will go ahead and just link my normal stuff. I will link the Discord. Let me pull it up. I had to close it down because it was getting really distracting because a lot of these things were... All right, here we go. Okay, so I will go ahead and link the Discord. What's my favorite pizza topping? Pepperoni. We're spooked, but yeah, I mean, at this point right now, if you have common shares, if you're playing options, obviously that's going to be, you're going to have to figure out if we get a IV spike, then you can maybe cut some losses and roll those. That's what I'm going to try to do if we get one of these tomorrow. And then let's see. We'll link also the... All right, here we go. And eventually, if we want to get me out so I can stream to you guys during the day and kind of call out what's going on, I do have a Patreon, and I will link that here. I guess the last person wrote something. I just saw something passing up. Yeah, the Culper research article on the Aterian that came out last year was basically just talking about like it's mixed. Just remember this everything's kind of like a mixed grain. That's a hit piece that somebody was writing. Aterian came back out and obviously denied all the like stuff. So you can read Aterian's response to their hit piece. They did place it on their investor relations. So I would probably read both sides, and then I would go ahead and say that the truth probably lies somewhere in the middle. I don't know for a fact. I didn't, research and see if somebody's been to prison or not. Like, I think he's Israeli, if I remember correctly, or maybe he served in the Israeli army. I have no idea, to be honest with you. I do know that he's been the CEO, and I should probably let's find out. That'll take 2 seconds. But I can tell you this. I know a lot of people who are good people that actually have been to prison too, so doesn't mean, if somebody makes a mistake, I believe in second chances, but obviously he's done something right where he was able to become a CEO of a publicly traded company. So let's see. I don't see anything immediately popping up. Yeah. See, John's been in prison. He's still a good guy. So yeah, I think honestly what I would do is I would go ahead and take that hit piece with a grain of salt and read the Aterian response. So that way you kind of get a balanced, view of both sides, and I think at that point you can make a decision for yourself. But that Culper piece was definitely a hit piece that was looking to basically make sure the stock went down in price, and it did its job because they released that back when it was like 48 in the 40s, I think, and they really like knocked it down a peg or two there because they were like going into the AI and stuff like that. So that's what those people do, though. They basically get paid to write hit pieces on different stocks and do investigative work, and so typically they have a bias and agenda. So that's what I would tell you is I would read Aterian's response, and I would also go ahead and take that with a grain of salt. But, you know, I would probably go that somewhere in the middle is probably the truth. All right. So got all that going on. Did I link the Patreon? I don't think I did. Did I? No, I didn't. I got sidetracked. All right, here we go. Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for coming out, and I will see you guys pre-market tomorrow, and hopefully we'll have a better day, or at least it will even out, and we can figure out kind of where it's going from here, and, you know, find different ways of talking about it and maybe getting in front of other people. So, all right, everyone have a great night, and do you think Anon is Elon Musk? I am not Elon Musk. All right, night, guys.